Over the years, I've shared the schedules that have worked for us. I've shared my best tips and tricks. I've shared playing with me's on setting up my year. But I was recently asked, how do you actually go about setting up your day? How do you decide when to do what? Good question. And I thought this was a really good question because I remember when I first started out homeschooling, we were only doing, kindergarten, just a couple of things. And so it was easy and we just fit it in around naps and park and library trips and all of that. And then we've kind of expanded it as we go. But if I were setting up like a schedule for an elementary, upper elementary, or middle school or something now, well, that's a totally different story. And so today, I'm going to share with you some kind of the way I approach it. And then on Saturday, I'm going to do a plan with me of me actually setting up our schedule. Because as of the taping of this, school starts in a few days and I haven't even started it yet. So how do I actually set up a schedule? The first thing I always look at are the things that are going to happen out of the house or the things that are out of my control. So what I'm talking about are things like standing medical appointments, lessons, classes, online classes, or classes, like lessons, enrichment classes, those sorts of things. Now, generally, of course, I can't really just set my own times for all those kind of things, with some flexibility. But when I can, I always try to do it in the afternoons because if we go out of the house in the morning, it is harder for us to do it in the afternoons. Ideally, Mondays, nothing happens outside of the home. In our current situation, co-op does, but you've heard me talk about that before. I don't like it. But I like to have one day at the beginning of the week where it's a dedicated at-home day so that we can get a good chunk done for the rest of the week. When my kids were younger, Mondays were always, never went out of the house, and they were always long days of school. That way we had a lot more flexibility the rest of the week. Currently, I like to try to do things out of the house on Tuesday or Thursday afternoons because Wednesdays we have church and my homeschool break room live every Wednesday here, 3 o'clock. So I don't like to be out of the house on the afternoon on those days. I hate feeling rushed. Also consider, if you have young children, things like naps, because you want to obviously have to plan around those. And yeah, so I like to make a list of all the things out of the house or just generally things that are out of my control. And then I make a list of things that are in my control, where there's flexibility for them, but there are things that I have to get done. So things like my grocery trips, library, field trips, those sorts of things. Next, I like to take a look, I like to consider what my week is going to look like. So, how many days of school do you need to do? Do you like to do 4 longer days or 5 shorter days? Or maybe you like to do 3 long days and 2 really short days or whatever. Consider that. And it's going to, when my kids were younger, it was so much easier to take shorter, do less number of days. As they've gotten older, well, we are at a 5-day-a-week schedule. Are you a family who does better in the morning or afternoon? Maybe you're a family who does really well in the afternoon and evening. I know lots of homeschool families who don't really get started until after lunch. They school, until dinner or a little bit after dinner even. That's fine if that's what works for your family. Absolutely go for that. My family is kind of an early rising family. I'm not, but or not willingly, but my family is. And so getting up and going in the mornings is just kind of a natural thing for us. So once you've kind of thought about all of those things, the out of the house things, when works best for your family to even do school, let's talk about your subjects. So what I like to do, and by now, this is year number 12 for us, I can just kind of do this mentally, but think about the subjects that require the most brain work to the least brain work. In another video back about, what was it? I think it was when I shared several years ago, or a couple of years ago, a video where I talked about all the different kinds of planners that we had done. So if you want more details about what I'm going to talk about now, go watch that video. Anyway, in that video, one of the things that I shared that I had done for my daughter for several years was made a chart for her schoolwork with things that required the most brain work all the way down to the least brain work. And I color coded each section. So each day she would pick something from the top block, and then we do something from the next block, and the next block, and then the end block would be things like go get a snack, or go ride your scooter for 10 minutes, or something like that, like active, getting her away. So she'd go down and do that, and then we would start at the top again and go back down to the list. But mentally creating a list of the things that require the most brain work to the least, so that you can space them appropriately. Because after my middle son, math wears him out. So after math, I try to always do something that doesn't require much for him. When my youngest son started taking Chinese classes, he does them online, and when he would come out, his brain would be mush, absolute mush. So if I then had him go do something that required a lot of brain work from him, it wasn't going to happen. In the Waldorf philosophy, what's the order? I think mind, body, spirit is kind of a flow for their school. So things that are going to require your mind, a lot of brain work, then your body and your soul. Spirit, I think is what it is. Obviously going down similar, because you're using less brain work as you go down, but feeding your body in other ways. So that's kind of a great flow to keep in mind, especially if you have younger kids as well. After I've, in my case, usually mentally, but physically on the paper the printable that you're going to get from me, I mark down and think about what is independent work and what's mom work. For our family, what tends to work is we put all the mom work together for one of my kiddos while the other one is doing independent work, and then we flip. So that I'm getting concentrated chunks with each kiddo and there's less flip-flopping. Now, when my kids were younger, that didn't work, because like an hour or an hour and a half of independent work, independent time wasn't going to happen with my young boys. But for now, they are 5th grade and 7th grade this year. That's totally feasible for us. And then you want to consider which of those subjects are going to be done daily, which ones will be twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever, and how long you're going to do each of those. For our family, we have found that working in 20 to 30 minute increments is generally all the good effort, good mind ability we're going to get. Now, as they get older, of course, that changes and they can increase it. But generally, about 30 minutes is all I'm going to get if I want good, concentrated brain work. Also, as you're doing this, consider what your kids' preferences are and your preferences. My middle kiddo loves to start his day with reading. So that's going to take priority in my scheduling if I can make it work. For me, scheduling anything that's heavy brain work in the afternoon, like teaching math, isn't ideal. So when I can, I avoid anything heavy like that in the afternoon. Also, anything that requires a lot of pieces, projects, etc. in the afternoon is not likely to get done if I have to spearhead that. And so those are kind of my guiding questions and things that I keep in mind as I'm filling out our school day. Don't forget to grab the free printable pack to help you with your scheduling down in the down bar. And I will see you in the playlist on the screen where we'll talk more about scheduling.